Hello, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining today. My name's Craig Hilton, and I'll be your presenter today. We also have Sharon assisting in the background as well. I really appreciate your time today and understand that it's quite valuable, and I'll try and do whatever I can to make it worthwhile. Today, we're going to discuss starting a small business. It's a very exciting time, and it can be a very daunting time. I'm a small business financial counsellor for Rural Financial Counsel Services, South Queensland. In my current role, we assist and support small businesses when things don't quite go to plan. I've also had over about 25 years worth of experience assisting small business with their finance, including lots of startups. On top of that, I've also owned my own business for 5 years as well. In that time, I've seen a broad range of success and failure, and have a real empathy and respect for people who are courageous enough to put themselves out there and have a go. I was reading a publication put out by Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman Kate Carnell. Kate commented, "Australia is a nation of small business, the engine room of the economy." She also stated that small business and family enterprise in Australia, being classified as businesses with less than 20 employees, account for almost 98% of businesses. Now, in my view, that just highlights just why small business is super important and why small business deserves to be supported, and why there are resources like this webinar today out there to try and assist you to be as successful as possible. This webinar series is a collaboration between Regional Development Australia and Small Business Financial Counselling Program. Regional Development Australia, or RDA as it's known, is an Australian government initiative that brings together all levels of government to enhance the development of Australia's regions. A national network of RDA committees has been established to achieve this objective. Small businesses around Australia can access individual support to grow their digital capabilities through the ASBAS, Australian Small Business Advisory Services digital solutions. The program offers small businesses low-cost, high-quality advice on a range of digital solutions to meet their business needs. Services include websites and selling online, social media and digital marketing, using small business software, and online security and data privacy. The Small Business Financial Counselling Program is delivered by Rural Financial Counselling Service Southern Queensland. The primary role of Small Business Financial Counselling Program is to support small businesses who are experiencing hardship associated with long-standing drought conditions or the impacts of COVID-19 and have no alternative source of impartial support. This support's free. It's free financial counselling. The Australian and Queensland government provide funding to deliver the program. Throughout today, we really encourage you to ask questions during the webinar. You can send us your questions using the chat system. At the bottom of the screen, you can just click on the chat icon. This is where you type your questions and be as detailed as you can. We'll be monitoring and answering the questions as we go. As I said earlier, Sharon's on board helping out, and we'll probably answer the questions in between slides. The information today is general in nature and really doesn't take into account your specific situation. My aim today, I guess, is that when you walk away, you'll have some idea of how to get started, what a few very important points there are there to consider, and where you might be able to go to for help following today. The topic of starting a business has really so many aspects to it. Has the potential to be a very long webinar, but we won't be today. We're going to break it down and touch on a number of things that I think are really important, being preparation, planning, decisions, cash flow, and an online presence. Preparation. preparation's really, I guess, about you. As I said, it can be a very daunting and very exciting time. Investing that time before you start to get yourself ready and get yourself organised is without doubt the greatest point that I can make here today. Just spending that time before you start to get yourself organised could very well save you down the track. Analyse your business idea. Is your business idea viable? Ask yourself some questions like, is there a market for your proposed product or service? And importantly, is your business idea worth investing your time and your money into? Analyse yourself. Sit down and think, are you ready to venture into business? Do you have the skills needed to run your business successfully? And are you ready to put in the hard work? I'm working with a client at the moment who runs a business which employs a number of staff. He's an absolute great guy with a good business, but finds managing staff very challenging, to the point that probably irrespective of how successful his business is, he finds being in business a real struggle, and probably didn't think that through before he started out. I've got another client who owned a very successful electrical business, but for some health reasons, he just couldn't continue himself on the tools. He was working by himself. He had to either get bigger and employ more staff, or he had to do something else. After he sat down and considered a few things and his options, he decided that he really didn't want to have the responsibility of multiple staff. So he just decided to move on to something else. And now he's teaching at TAFE and loves it. There is some help out there. There's something that's called a business readiness quiz. Now, I found this on the business.qld.gov.au website. Now, that's the Queensland one. And the quiz, I jumped on and did it as well, just to find out what sort of things it would pop up. It asked me to think about why you're going into business. It asked questions like, what have you done so far? And how do you know about it? How much do you know about it? And from there, it gave an action plan. And it also gave some supporting links of where you could go to as well. So I found that business readiness quiz very good. And I'd absolutely recommend anyone looking to go into business and just thinking about it to start out with that and have a look and just see what things that brings up that you might consider. Google's your friend and your enemy. These days, there is so much information available at your fingertips, which is fantastic. It can, however, make things quite overwhelming because there's so much information to choose from. How do you channel that information, which is available? There's so many things you can do. My recommendation would be business.gov.au is a great place to start. From that website, you can access things like business checklists, how to register ABNs, business names and taxes. It provides information on planning. It provides information on finance and marketing. It has links to what grants might be available for you. It's got links for events and training. You can put in your location and it can let you know what expertise and advice is available in your area. It's a really good place to start and can just channel all those things into one. And I'd really recommend you have a look at that. In preparation as well, talk about building a team around you. Start with a squad and then pick a team. Apologise for the sporting analogy today, but it is State of Origin tonight, so I thought I'd throw that one in. You're not going to be able to do it all on your own. You have more chance of success when you have help and support from others around you. They can bring additional skill sets to your business that you may not have. And I'd point out too, that team can change. I had a client the other day who had a bookkeeper, which she'd been working with for a little while, and she just wasn't getting what she needed. So she made a change. So she changed her team, and she's just found that that's been super helpful for her. So don't be concerned about that. Decide on who's going to be involved in your business on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, there's going to be yourself. There's going to be business partners, that you may have, and key staff as well. So you've got to give some thought to that when you're moving into it. Part of your team as well, there's going to be some paid professionals. You're going to likely have an accountant, you're going to likely have a solicitor, and a bookkeeper. Now, when you make some decisions on those people, I would suggest that you give some consideration to the value of looking to work with an accountant or a solicitor that's either local or specialised in your industry. The local professionals tend to have a good understanding of what's happening in business in your general area. That can be particularly valuable if you're regionally based. They just know what's happening around. You may also have face-to-face contact with them, which really helps you build an ongoing relationship that you're going to want to have. Professionals out there that specialise in your industry as well are really good because, you know, they're going to bring to the table their understanding of what's happening inside that industry, some valuable insights for your business. So when you're looking at those people like accountants, solicitors, I'd really strongly recommend you have a look at local or specialised. Seek some support from people who may be available through a range of government-funded programs. You'll find out there that there are programs to assist small business at federal, state and local government level. Certainly one thing that I've really found that there really should be more awareness about that because there's such good resources out there. If you go to business.gov.au and you search a tab that says expertise and advice and you add your postcode in, it's going to provide you with some contacts that are really in your area. I went in and searched my local postcode. It gave me contacts for the business mentoring program. It gave me contacts for the entrepreneurs program. It tells me whether those programs are online or in person. And I was happy to find that a lot of them, or probably most of them, I would say, were in person. And it even gave me details of the service that I work for. So when things don't quite go to plan, it has some assistance in there as well. I've sort of added in as well, consider and consult your own family. They're going to be part of your team as well, in some way or another, whether they're directly involved in the business or not. It's a very important consideration that when you're starting out in business, there is definitely going to be some impacts on your life outside of the business. You're going to have some personal considerations outside of the business. You may have some personal debts. You may have some other commitments outside of the business that also need to be considered when you're starting out. Now, it's probably not going to be that unusual for a startup business to go through an amount of time where there'll be little or no income generated from the business. So you're going to need to ensure that there's a plan in place before you start to consider not only the business cash flow, but those personal commitments as well along the way. So that's why it's important to involve the whole family in their support. Planning. What's the plan, Stan? Probably more importantly is why the plan. There seems to be a great deal of opinion as to why it's important to have a business plan. Regardless of all the opinions that are out there, and I jumped online and you could see a gazillion of them, the consensus is that it's crucial. Plan helps transition from an idea into a business. I was speaking with a lady that I work with last week who was talking to one of her clients who was having some trouble. They were about 2 or 3 months into a new venture and already having some trouble. He said that his sales weren't enough to meet his rent. She asked what he'd planned for or what he'd expected to be his sales. He said that he hadn't worked it out. He had a general idea of what the business would look like before he started, but he hadn't really worked it out. So plans help avoid those costly mistakes. In that example, he had an idea. He jumped in without doing too much planning. He was running the business. That was sort of really still a bit of an idea in his head. He'd signed a lease and he was about 3 months into a 5-year commitment. Now, he had no backup plan for cash flow. And he was actually one of his options was to close the doors, and he was seriously looking at it. But if he was to do that, he'd have 4.5 years or more left of a rent liability that would be hanging over his head. So in his instance, if things don't work out, that could be a very costly mistake. And part of the reason is that he didn't jump in and do some planning beforehand. So I guess the plan helps assess the viability of the business as well. As you go through the process, which includes assessing competition and projecting income and expenditure, you're really going to get a clear idea as part of doing the plan of the business's viability. The plan also shows interested parties that you're serious about business. There's going to be some other interested parties out there that are going to want to review your plan. If they can see that you've been realistic and considered and will give some comfort, it's going to give them some comfort that you'll likely be successful. A plan's also going to be a requirement if you want to raise finance or you want to attract investors or even apply for some of the grants that are available. If you intend to seek funding or cash flow facilities for the business, the bank will need to be confident of your business success to ensure their loans are going to be repaid. Your business plan is going to demonstrate to them whether you've done your research, whether you've been realistic about your research, and then that's going to provide them with the confidence to support you. If you do a sort of poorly prepared plan, that could end up resulting in a negative outcome for you or the loan being declined, which would make things potentially not move forward. When I was a small business banking manager for a while, and if a client came in and requested finance, if they came in and presented me with a well-prepared, a well-researched plan, and sometimes even without asking, firstly, I'd do triple air punches for that. But what it would do is really give me some confidence in them. It would also make the loan decision easier because rather than me just considering all the risks and stuff, that I can tell that they've considered them and they had some plans in place to cover if something went wrong. So it's really going to help you for those third parties that want the plan. Plan's also going to help formulate a blueprint for the business. Like, there's so much to organise when you're starting out. I guess it's like building a house, and the first thing you do is basically submit your plans to the council so that everyone knows what this is going to look like at the end. So it helps formulate that blueprint for the business. It also is going to help you identify some actions and some action plans to move forward, because as you're working through that plan and you're working out what needs to happen, it's going to become clear what needs to be done. So as you're working through it, you're going to go, oh, okay, I haven't done that, so I need to do that. And it's going to become clear what needs to be done. So it's going to help you with that action plan as you move through the business plan.
We've got a question, Craig.
Great.
Just the question is, can I hire a consultant to build a business plan?
Yeah, thank you. And that's an absolutely great question. You can, like that, it's certainly an option, I guess, for you, because, they're part of, they may be part of your team. What I would suggest, though, is that there are some options out there that are government subsidised, which you can access through that business.gov.au, who provide support that may not need to be paid or is partly subsidised. So I'd certainly look at that as well and consider your options, because to me, if you can get some help with a plan, absolutely. So I'd probably start with looking at those options that are subsidised or paid for, and but if you feel comfortable with someone and you are prepared to pay them, that can be an option as well. So really, it's up to you. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. And keep questions coming. More than happy to do that. What's in a plan? I guess you've got to determine your audience, who you're going to be writing this plan for. Once you've determined your audience, you can decide what's in it, I suppose. You may have a few versions of your plan. Primarily, you're going to want to do it for yourself and your own benefit. But you may have some variations as well, either for your bank, if you're wanting to borrow money, investors or organisations or that supply the grants. some of those third parties may have some specific requirements or things that are important to them to be considered. This is going to help you, I guess, what is in your plan, because you're going to need to align it with what they're after. But you'll probably do one for yourself as well. So there may be a couple of versions. Common inclusions in a plan, one-page overview, the business summary. So it's a one-page overview at the start of your plan. Gives readers a quick snapshot of your plan. It's generally done once the plan's finalised. So once you've got it all together, and then you put a summary and pop that at the front, because that's going to give people a quick, good snapshot of things. You're going to have a management or operations plan as part of it. It covers details about your business, including the structure, registrations, location of the business and the premises, some key staff, the products and services. You'll also have a marketing part of the plan. It should outline your marketing analysis of the industry that you're entering, your customers and your competitors. The section should also cover your key marketing targets and strategies for delivering on those targets. Section about the future, which might include a vision statement, business goals, and some key business milestones that you want to hit. And it should also include a financial plan, which is how you're going to finance your business, what the costings are, what financial projections are. I guess this is the sort of numbers part of the plan. It's what the financiers are going to look at and critique. You might have a few scenarios of part of that as that. You might have, plan one, plan two, as far as the financial projections go. But, you're going to want to back up those projections with some assumptions that they're going to know how you came up with them. And, you want to display that those assumptions that you've come up with to get your numbers have been considered and are realistic and well thought out and researched, so that they can be relied on. You want to do a risk analysis. Sorry?
I have a question.
Sure.
One of our listeners would like to know where they would find subsidised workshops.
Oh, okay. Yep. If you go to, probably a good start would be go to that business.gov.au, and from there, that section that said expertise and advice, I believe it was, and it'll take you through to some links from there. There's a the business.queensland.gov.au, and some of the state ones will have their own as well. But if you start with that business.gov.au, that's a really good place, because it takes you on to those, and it'll give you lots of workshops and things along the way that are available. And there is so many out there. It's so surprising for me coming to a role like this, where I've been in a more commercial type, corporate type enterprises in the past, and just wasn't aware of how much support there is available. So if you start there, and you'll find there's plenty of places to go. I'll mention as we move forward as well, some extra places you can go to that provide support as well, with different workshops and things for the specific areas when I go through them.
Thank you.
Risk analysis. When you do this is just to show that you aren't going in with rose-coloured glasses, that you've at least identified and acknowledged the risks that are available to your business, and come up with some plans in place to either minimise or control these risks. Some of the risks in business, you'll have little control over, but you need to show that you've identified them and are thinking about them. Once a plan's completed, what do we do? Well, really, should never really consider your plan completed, I suppose, because things are going to change. That's just part of being in business. How businesses end up compared to where they start can be totally different. But so your plan sort of needs to be agile and change along the way, reviewed and updated regularly. Your strategy is going to change as the business evolves, because stuff's going to happen that you haven't planned for, you couldn't plan for, and you need to be adaptable and you need to be able to change. So that plan needs to sort of change as you go as well. As part of my role as a small business financial counsellor, we always ask our clients when we first meet them if they have a plan and when it was last reviewed. And bearing in mind, we're talking to people when things go wrong generally. So a very common response to us is, We did one at the start and we never looked at it again. So they may have done one for one of those third parties that wanted it. You know, they may have applied for a grant, applied for an overdraft or something, and they've done their plan, they presented it, they've got what they needed at the time, and then just didn't go back. So it's really important to review and update it and understand that it's going to change, because that's business. Also seek feedback once you do your plan. My view is that there is no bad feedback. You can choose to agree or disagree with the feedback people give you, and that's okay. But the more feedback you get, you know, someone's going to come up with some good ideas that you haven't thought of. So seek some feedback on it. It might be from, you know, your professional. It might be from other people in your industry, any mentors that you might have. Really, anybody can provide feedback. You know, and if you can pick up something good out of that, that's fantastic. Where can you go to for help with a plan? I keep banging on about that website, but it's a really good one to start, business.gov.au. Business.queensland.gov.au. I'm a Queenslander, so I tend to, you know, go to that one a bit because a lot of my clients use it. There's government-funded support programs, you know, that you can access from those as well, which are often face-to-face. And, you know, starting out, face-to-face might be really good. There's LEAP programs, there's a business entrepreneurs program. There's lots of free training and webinars available that you can access from those websites. You can get professional and paid assistance as well, such as your accountants and business mentors that might be paid or unpaid, which we spoke about earlier on. Decisions. You're going to have lots and lots of decisions to make, but there's going to be a couple of key decisions that you're going to need to make early on, because a lot of things will be determined from that. Two of the main things that you're going to really need to look at is your business structure. And there's a number of options there that you can go through, and your business name. Because once you register that, you know, you want to keep it. So you need to make those early on. The business structure, I guess it's going to determine at times what licenses you require. It's going to determine how your tax is calculated. It's going to determine, you know, whether you're considered an owner or an employee of the business. It's going to determine your personal liability, and, you know, what risks there are for you personally with that. It's going to determine, you know, who's got control of the business, and it's going to determine any of the paperwork and costs that are be involved. You can change your business structure at a later date. However, that can be a costly and timely exercise, particularly if you've got loans set up which need to be restructured, you've got guarantees and all sorts of things in it. So, you know, if you can get your business structure right at the start, it'll save you some of that trouble down the track. The types of business structures that are out there, I mentioned 4 basic ones: sole trader, partnership, company, and a trust. Sole trader is pretty simple, and often that's what people tend to go to when they first start up, because it's simple. It's got fewer reporting requirements. It's pretty low cost to set up. There is unlimited liability though as a sole trader. You know, your personal assets are at risk if things go wrong, and it doesn't allow the business profits to be split with others to reduce the tax liability. It's just you, or the income's you, so the tax liability is all with you. The second one's a partnership, still reasonably simple and easy to set up, has fairly minimal reporting requirements. You can share control and management of the business. If you're a partnership, it might just be 2 individuals. You don't pay income tax on the partnership income. Each partner pays tax on their share of the income. It does require a separate partnership tax return though, an ABN. In a general partnership, each partner still has unlimited liability for the debts and obligations it incurs. And that also means that you could be potentially liable for your partner's actions. It's a little bit more complicated. There are 3 different types of partnerships that I sort of won't go into in too much detail today, given the time constraints. You will also have a company, and a company is really a separate legal entity, which is different to the sole trader and the partnership. A company can incur a debt in its own right. It can sue and it can be sued. It's a total separate legal entity. It's almost like being a separate person. More expensive and complicated to set up. It does really require an understanding of the obligations of the directors under the Corporations Act, because there are obligations of the directors. The business obligations are controlled by the directors. It does mean the company members can have a limited liability though. So you can limit some of your liability, although at times, if you borrow from a bank or you enter into a lease, so if you've got a company and you enter into a lease in the company name, or you borrow from a bank in the company name, often they'll require a director's personal guarantee as well, because that liability is limited. They will link it in anyway through a personal guarantee. The money earned in the business belongs to the company. The directors can take a salary from that. So at times that can assist with your overall tax commitments as well. Then there's the trust. This trust can be expensive to set up and operate. It requires a totally separate formal trust deed. It's often used as a way to distribute income. And, if you're going to enter into a trust, you'd want to get some advice for that. So they're the four main types. Who can help? Your accountant can help, because they're likely going to be completing your tax returns and advising on the tax side of it. So they're a really good one to get involved in the business structure before you start and ask their advice. Your solicitor is a good one to get involved as well, because I mentioned that it does impact on your personal liability. So your solicitor can give some input to you around that liability and the asset protection side of things. And if you've got a partnership, the solicitor may also be able to help do up a partnership agreement. ato.gov.au, they have a section, if you go into there, that's called Supporting Small Business. And you can find some resources in there, such as training and webinars as well, direct from the ATO. I sat in on a webinar recently that they put on, which was essentially on business structures and what your obligations and what your paperwork and returns are required to be given to the ATO. So, and I found that really good. So that would be a good one to start with as well when you're looking at business structures. The advisors from your local support programs as well that I mentioned earlier, the Entrepreneurs Program, Mentoring for Growth. So the ATO was surprisingly, that was really quite good. And, at the end of the day, you want to be doing your tax and have some obligations with them. So they can help you out, which was good. Business name. So why register a business name? Why do I need one? If you want to trade your business under a specific name, you're going to need to register it with ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. It's actually an offence to under your own name. So if I set up a sole trader and I just call it Craig Hilton, sole trader, and I want to trade as Craig Hilton and put all that on my invoices and all that sort of things, that's fine. I don't need one. But if I want to trade as anything else other than my legal name, then I have to. So I'll need to register that business name, Craig Hilton Electrical Services, because it's not my legal name. Has it in there, but it's not my legal name. A company is reasonably interesting, as in, if you have a company called Hilton Electrical Proprietary Limited and you want to trade as that, that's fine. It does not need a separate business name registered, but you could have a company that's called anything XYZ Proprietary Limited, but trades as Craig Hilton Electrical Services. Well, then I need to register that part of it, because bearing in mind a company is a separate legal entity. So probably the most important thing about your business name is when you register it, it means no one else can operate a business under that same name. So it's really protection for you. And it's really important that you do. And we do see it at times. Like we see it quite a bit where people will be trading and we'll go on and do a search and they haven't registered or the registration's lapsed, which is a real risk to those businesses. So you sort of do it for that reason, as well as it being an obligation. There is a national business names register these days, which was introduced in 2012. Prior to that, there were some trading names that didn't have to register, but that's all changed. Business names are registered with ASIC, as I said, and you can jump on www.asic.gov.au and you can actually register it there. You will need an ABN set up to register a business name, which you can do on that website as well. And if you want to open a bank account that's in a business name, you'll need to register it first these days. They won't let you open one unless you've registered that name, and they'll want to do a search and confirm that as well. So that's important. So that's why that, a couple of these things are important at the start, because, you're going to open an account, you're going to do those things, you need to get this stuff set in place before you do that. Cash flow. I really wanted to bring up the point of cash flow today. Cash flow, because cash flow is super important. It's particularly important at the start of your business because you're not going to know what it's going to be like. If you manage your cash flow well, it's going to mean that you're going to have enough cash in the business to pay your commitments, so your suppliers, your loan payments, your wages to your staff, all those sort of things when it's due. Cash flow is probably one of the main reasons that businesses fail, because if you don't have that cash to continue operating, sort of cascades and everything can stop. If you don't pay your suppliers, they can stop supplying product for you to sell. If you don't have anything to sell, your sales stop, and so will your customers. So cash flow is super important. It's different from profit. It's really about timing of the cash inflows and cash outflows, whereas the profit is really the amount that you're going to have left over after all the expenses are paid. So, you normally do your profit over a yearly thing, whereas your cash flow is really all about a point in time. It's all about the cash inflows, cash coming. Both are important. Profit and cash flow, both are important, but you're likely going to feel the impact of having a poor cash flow first. So that's why it's really important. And it's a really massive source of stress for small business. If you don't get that cash flow right, if you don't have things in place to cover you, because in sort of previous roles as a business banking manager, I guess I had a lot of phone calls on a Thursday afternoon from some extremely worried people because they knew that they had to pay their staff the next day and they didn't have the money in their bank account to do it. And if you've got obligations to your staff and you don't have the money there to do it, that's going to be a massive source of stress for you. So it's really important that you get your cash flow sorted and managed. Monitor and project. So regularly looking at a projection in advance can help you predict when you might be having a cash flow crunch coming. Once you know that you've got a cash flow crunch coming, when you're looking at the timing of cash in and cash out, then you can put some plans in place to cover it. You've got things that you can do. You can try and negotiate your terms of trade. So your receivables, if you keep the money coming in and try and negotiate those terms as short as possible, and put your payables out as long as possible, that's going to mean you've got money coming in quick and you're sort of delaying what needs to be paid. On the other side, there are some practicalities that come into play there with what you can and can't do, particularly when you're a small business and you're trying to negotiate these things. But you sort of do what you can. If you can get your money coming in before you need to pay your suppliers, potentially you'll be cash flow positive. Probably use an example like a coffee shop that I go to. They basically, once they make the coffee and you buy it, they get the cash immediately. If their inputs, when they're ordering their coffees and stuff, if they've got a 30-day term to trade with them and don't have to pay them for 30 days, potentially they could get that cash coming in before they have to pay for their supplies. So it's really important. Work practices as well. I see a lot of this in place, which can really help people, getting your invoicing right, offering some incentives for immediate payment so you don't have to, put people who pay in, 30 days, and ability to accept credit cards, which is essentially money coming in straight away. Basically, the faster you can get your money coming in, the better. And a really good example of this sort of work practices is two plumbers that did some work for me recently at different times, just sort of different things. One did some stuff inside the house, one did some stuff outside the house. The guy that did the work inside the house, I sort of noticed him sitting in my driveway after he'd done the job. And I thought, oh, that's a bit unusual. Maybe he's taking a phone call or something. And what he was actually doing was he was sending me an invoice before he left my driveway for the work that he'd done. He drove out and up at Pops, and I went, oh yeah, okay, cool. He did the work for me, no dramas. I'll transfer him the money. Paid him the money straight away. He basically got the money that day if he was at another bank or something, maybe the next day at worst. The other plumber that came and did the work outside, he left, didn't see him. 2 weeks later, a invoice turned up in the mail and it was wrong, so I had to call in. He had to do another one, send it out. But irrespective, he delayed getting his money because he didn't have those work practices in place. And the gentleman that came first, he had the invoice to me straight away. So, the work practice that you put in place can really impact on that cash flow. Have some systems in place for late payers as well. You're going to find that, it's not a perfect world out there. Not everyone's going to pay just because you send them an invoice, so to speak. So you want to have some systems in place that, follow up on that and follow up fairly quickly as well. The quicker you get in and follow up any of the people that are paying late, the quicker you're going to get the money back. Sometimes it's just a simple case of, you send them an invoice or something and they overlooked it. Even general reminders, text messages, emails, quick phone call, whatever. Any sort of simple systems that you can put in place will also assist. And I would really suggest keeping projections simple and useful. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. There's a lot of cash flow spreadsheets that are out there that you can jump online and grab that are on a yearly basis, on a month basis. They'll go January, cash in, cash out, February, cash in, cash out. And it's often a requirement, some of the financiers or whatever, that's how they look for things. But when you're starting out, that's pretty hard to predict. Some of the clients that I've been working with have found a shorter 13-week cash flow. So that's not a month-by-month one, that's a week-by-week one, because, throughout the month, you might run out of cash. So that 13-week cash flow, they found really helpful. It's easy to do as well because, it's probably a little bit easier to predict what's going to come in the next, week on week, so to speak, as to, 12 months in advance. So it sort of gives them some comfort as well. Okay, we know we're going to be right for the next 3 months or so. We've had a good look at it. We're pretty confident that's what's coming in, that's what's going out. And it just gives them some comfort that they're going to be okay. Certainly be doing it with people through this COVID period and stuff like that as their things changed. So, if you can keep it really simple and, maybe even that 13-week one is certainly one to have a look at. To get help with cash flows, accountants provide support there if you wish. A lot of the banks have their own spreadsheets as well. When you're applying for finance and they'll ask for a cash flow, they'll provide a spreadsheet that you can use. Again, they're generally month ones. And there's plenty of training out there. One of the ones that I would recommend looking at is through TAFE Queensland, actually, financial resilience webinars. They did quite a few of them in the early days with COVID. I had a look yesterday, the one on with the 13-week cash flow included in there. It's still up there. It's obviously not a live one, but it's still up there, and I would sort of really recommend doing that because it was pretty valuable. An online presence. I'm just going to have a little sip of drink here. An online presence. Really important these days, and it's not just a website anymore. That's what people sort of did consider it at one stage. Good website's still really important, but that online presence includes things like search engine optimization, social media marketing, blogging, all that sort of stuff. So that's important. It's having that online presence. It's good for your clients. And also helps extend your client base. People can find you any time of the day. You don't need to be open. It also legitimizes your business as well. If you don't have an online presence these days, if you really don't have one, people are going to start to wonder why. There's lots of information that you can put on it, things about your story, about your business, your experience, that can help people decide whether they want to become customers or not. So having that online presence is really vital. I'd also mention LinkedIn. my personal opinion, it's sort of considered probably Facebook for business. You can create a network, you can put up posts, you can get information out there to your network. You can let people know what you're doing. That's really important, particularly in that early startup phase. I see a lot of businesses that post quite regularly on there about what they're doing. So it's a great way of building that network, but it's a great way of just getting out there to people so they know what they're doing. So that's another one. And you can also integrate some of this online stuff with your business practices. Things like booking systems. Great example, I've got a lady who is basically a single operator beauty salon. So she provides a service and she's sort of locked away in the rooms for a lot of the day. Now she's got an online booking system, so she doesn't have to leave her appointments to go and answer phones, to make appointments in the diary. They're done for her with the online booking system. So that just makes her life easier, gives her more time, and it also means that she doesn't have to allow that much time of the day for those things. So she could probably book in more appointments and things like that. My barber does it too. We've got a barber move into our area. He's the only one that does it. But I love it as a customer because I can just jump on, book a time. I know I don't have to go and sit and wait there. He's always ready. So there's some really good integration with your business practices. And, things like sales online as well. The beauty salon, she also sells a bit of product. And she does that online now as well. So that's almost a passive income for her because she doesn't really have to do anything. She just sort of accepts the orders online. So, there's some great ways that you can integrate an online presence with your business. Where do you go for help? Australian Small Business Advisory Service Digital Solutions, which we spoke about early on. That's government subsidised online workshops and digital consultations as well. So that's a great place to start. Again, any of these, government subsidised help out there, I recommend. If you go to www.business.gov.au, there's a link to, let's call it ASBAS, providers in your state, because there's some different providers in your state. In Queensland, it's the RDA, and they will, from there, you can go on and find those details, and great service. In summary, I guess I've spoken today about preparation, investing some time into the preparation before you start, having a look at yourself, making sure you're ready, building a team of people around you, seeking out what support's available, and making sure everyone, including families, on board. I've spoken about planning. We talked about getting a formal business plan together and why that's important for you and other stakeholders around you, and the concept that the plan is not a one-off but an ongoing, almost like a live document that you'll need to change and will change. We talked about some important decisions early on because you're starting up. A couple of those in decisions are business structure and the business name. I talked about cash flow, where I highlighted the importance, particularly early on in the business, and understanding so that you potentially avoid those oh my sort of moments that you can get into and running out of cash. And I spoke about an online presence and how important that is in the world we live today. And it's important to your customers, so it's important to you, and how you can integrate that into your business practices. Starting a business is so exciting, very daunting, lots to do. I understand that I've probably only really been able to touch on the surface of the task for you, and I hope I've provided a little bit of guidance of where you can go to for a bit more further support. I'd just like to touch again a little on just a bit of a reminder of the programs that will help putting this on today. The Small Business Financial Counselling Service, we support and assist small and medium businesses who are experiencing financial hardship. Our mission is to assist people to identify ways to become self-reliant and better equipped to manage and change and adjust. The role of ASPAS, Digital Solutions Program, which is one I really recommend. It provides high quality, low cost, government subsidised one-on-one advisory services, workshops and webinars, and a wide range of digital topics. And those digital things are so important today. Things that, in the past have been a bit of a mystery, websites and online selling, social media and digital marketing, using small business software and online security and data. Their service has also been extended to general business advisory topics over this time, business crisis management, financial management, boosting cash flow, some real practical stuff there as well. Retaining and staying connected to customers, resilience and well-being. And if you're going to run a small business, resilience is super important, and the COVID-19 stimulus packages that are available. I'll add some contacts there as well. The Small Business Financial Counselling Program, there's a 1300 number there with the website of rfcssq.org.au, Rural Financial Counselling Service, Southern Queensland, and the ASPAS phone number and ASPAS, www.aspas.rda Brisbane. And the side of that popped off on my screen, so I apologise for that. And I really want to thank you for spending the time with me today. I hope I've given some input there to you. I will hang on for a little while. If anyone's got any further questions, we're happy to try and answer. But again, thank you. And obviously, if you're doing this today, you're considering going and starting a small business, and I wish you all the best with that. And just know that there's support and help available. There's a lot of government funded support, and like I say, the awareness of that, really needs to be put out there in the general business community, and it is available. So I'd really recommend that you use it. So thank you again, and I will hang on and just see if anyone's got any questions. But those that want to go, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Sharon.